just to give everybody kind of advance notice, at 7:45, Matt and Susan are coming on. They've been given 30-minute tops to do their piece. Between 7:30 and 7:45, Jim will just cover the financials really quickly. And then at 8:15 to 8:30, we'll have maybe a quick break in the action. And then at 8:30, we have Aaron Parker coming on. And Aaron is with Pennington, and he has a half hour. And that half hour needs to include presentation and Q&A. And I'll be the police guy on keeping everybody on time to the best of my ability. But you know, to keep this meeting from running all night, we're going to have to maybe be a little. We have to cut people off. And what we can do is we can submit questions later to these people if we have them afterwards. Let's see here. Do we have a quorum? Usually Rick Hyatt's doing that. 1, 2. 1, 2.
You got 3 on right now. 3 and you.
3 and me.
And Doug Wood should be on. That'll be 4 and you. As soon as he comes on.
President counts for a quorum.
Sorry, Ron.
President counts for a
Okay. Okay. So that would be 4.
Are you going to want me to bring up, Jim, the financials so people can see them? You want me to share them on my screen, or just not important?
It doesn't matter. I don't know if everyone's got them or not.
I have not. That's okay.
I'd like you to, if you can, just so it's there.
Do you want me to bring them up now? Are you going to get going or what?
Yeah, let's bring them up so we're ready to go, because we only have 12 more minutes till 7:45.
Okay. Just give me a second here.
I think I've said hello to everybody, but I haven't said hello to Chuck, and I haven't said hello to David and Joe.
I never heard you, Tom, because I might have been muted.
Hello, Jim.
Hello, Tom. Doug's going to be on here. I talked to him today.
Why don't we, for the sake of making sure that we keep this thing moving, go ahead and Jim, you talk to him, and that way we're ready at 7:45.
Okay. I mean, everything that I've got here is basically as of yesterday. It should be our numbers and stuff. It is with all the accounts that I keep track of, and Taj gave me an update yesterday on the account at Petersburg. So you know, the main accounts that have changed would be the operations account there at the top of the 21,384.57. That includes the $17,500 of the money that's been raised for the study so far.
How much?
The 17.5.
Okay.
As of yesterday. That's on the last page, actually. So the only thing I'm not sure of right there have to do with the Educational Foundation and the AGR and the SIU ones. They might vary a little bit from that. The other ones are all okay, though.
Have you got my check yet, Jim?
Who's that?
Al.
Al, no, I haven't. I got you that address, but as of today, I haven't received a check yet.
All right, I mailed it again on Monday.
Okay. I will email you when I receive it.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks.
I
Any
enabled-
questions?
Go ahead.
Any questions on this page? Okay, the next page is basically our income statement, and the thing that would have changed probably since last time on there is rent. I've received rent from the chapter of 15,504, which is basically they're paid through July. And I don't know whether Blake's on, we can discuss anything with him. The membership dues, $900 has been collected for 2023 since July 1. That's come off of from TAJ. Donations to Pennington Study as of yesterday, $17,500. And some of this other stuff had to do with stuff at the summer meeting. And then expenses, we show the rent. I paid rent from July through November of $19,000. And there's some other things there. A lot of them have to do with the summer meeting as far as expenses, except for the ones down there at the bottom. Tom got reimbursed for what we had when we did the alumni active meeting in September. And also the last one had to do with the meal with Chris Clausen that I reimbursed Tom for too. That should be where we are as far as income and expenses through yesterday also. And then the very last page, I just put that in there showing who basically who I've received money for and what the total amount is. So that's how much I've got as of yesterday.
There's one commitment for $1,600 that I don't see in there, so I'll follow up with him tomorrow. So that would put us over. That would put us at 18,600.
I actually have another one that I got for $1,000 today.
So
Congratulations, everybody. Well done.
19,600.
And like I said, I know that Al's is in the mail again.
Anything else? Hey, Jim, can you this week or next week get with Joe so that we can get I know, I'm sorry, I made a mistake on that one. Taj, can you get with Joe and get him on the account at Petersburg?
Yes, in fact, I got it set up. There was a couple other accounts showing up on that mobile banking or whatever you want to call it that were mine that I got off of there. So yeah, I'm ready to get that done.
And then Jim, is there anybody else on the account at WIT?
No.
Who would you
To
like
do
to
that,
have
we
on
need
there?
to have probably need to have a copy of the minutes showing who's directed to be on there. As far as being added, so we decide to do that, then we need to have a motion and indicate who needs to be put on there. And then just give me a copy of the minutes.
My picture went goofy and it just has my name up there, so it said something about my microphone. I was on a different. And what do I do here if I want to talk? Oh, right there it is. Okay. You just come up.
We
can
hear you, Jay. We hear you.
Oh, you hear me? Oh,
Yes.
Yeah, we hear you.
I got it on mute, I thought.
Nope.
His picture's on mute.
Jim, who were you thinking about having on there with you?
Oh, you just mentioned about on Tadge's account about adding So Mike, is that your Joe? Is it
No, Joe.
Joe?
Joe.
That's what we need to do. I just need to have something in the minutes and then I need to have his information. You'll just have to get with me on that.
Would somebody be willing to make a motion to approve adding Joe to the account in WIT for the account Jim controls?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Tom,
Yes. Yes, DJ.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Nay? Hearing none, motion approved. So go ahead and Jim, work with Joe to get him on the account. I think this will be good for better transparency and just in case something were to ever happen.
Okay, like I said, if I just get a copy of it, I can get with him, he can get with me, and then Rick can get me a copy of the minutes or whatever when they're done, as far as that goes.
Joe, I'm
Probably
gonna have-
next week. I'm on vacation until next Thursday. I'm not gonna go in the bank till then.
That's fine. Joe, I'll have to have you call into the bank and probably do something electronically to get on there. That's what they told me when I inquired last week. So give me a call or text.
Do we need a motion to approve Joe on the account at Petersburg? I don't think we have one. Will somebody
Can we amend the other motion and just make it for both?
Yes, yeah, I think so.
Otherwise, I can move to do that. I don't care.
No, let's keep it simple.
Okay.
I appreciate you doing that. That's something that I think is the right thing to do for the organization. Okay. Let me see. We have 3 minutes till they come on. Rick, are they queued? Are they in the room?
No, not yet.
Okay. I want to, before everybody else comes on, I want to say welcome and thank you for coming on tonight. It's going to be a longer call than I'd like it to be, but we got some pretty good stuff figured out here to figure out, and I appreciate you taking the time to be here tonight. Thank you.
Tom, this is way more important than the 4-hour calls I set through on work. So I think I can handle 2 hours for.
All right. Thank you. 4 hours at work. Do you get anything done?
Sometimes.
Wow.
They're not always that long. They're usually an hour, but we have had a couple 4-hour ones, and they're special.
That's a long time.
Okay, Susan Graham's in the waiting room.
Go ahead and admit her.
All right, here we go.
Hi, Susan. Welcome. You're on mute, to quote Taj.
Evening. How are you?
Doing fine,
Good.
thanks. Why don't we just real quickly just introduce yourself so Susan knows who's on the call real quickly. Go ahead and start, Rick, in your corner.
Okay, Rick Story. You talking to me, Rick, I guess?
Yes, that Rick.
Okay.
Hi, Susan. Ron Brohammer.
Tom Meyer. Taj.
Davis.
Oh, and just say where you're from, by the way.
Petersburg, Illinois. Initiated AGR 94. Graduated SIU 98.
Ron.
Gosh, I think everyone knows. Originally from Coffeen, Illinois, up the road about 100 miles. Graduated and completed my degree in '66 and got my diploma in '67.
Jim.
Jim Miller, up the road from Coffeen and originally from Witt, Illinois. I live in Nokomis, Illinois. Graduated in '83 and Susan knows me. I always pester her when I go to the Farm Progress Show looking for SIU goodies.
Rick Hyatt.
Hi, Susan, and everybody. Glad you're on tonight. See, I graduated in '70 and executive secretary for the alumni, and I'm in Pontiac, Illinois.
Steve Wyatt.
Hi, Susan. I graduated in 1970. I live in Effingham, as you know very well, and I'm just an innocent bystander.
Al Osterlund.
Oh,
Bystander, not innocent.
Yeah, okay.
I'm Al Osterland, graduated in 1971. Currently live in Albion, Indiana, in the Eastern Time Zone. And I'm the scholarship guru.
Matt's coming on now.
Jake.
Jake Rendelman. Graduated in 65, should have graduated in 63, but was too busy farming LEAC. So anyway, good to be with you all, Susan, Carterville, Illinois.
David.
David Lagerhausen, Effingham. I was at SIU from 88 to 92.
Chuck Schaub.
Hi, Susan. We spoke on the phone here, I believe it was about a week ago. I'm calling you from the Dallas area, originally from Monmouth, Illinois. I graduated up there in '75.
Okay, so that we don't cut into the time too much, Susan and Matt, take it away, please. Oh, I'm sorry, I cut off DJ. Sorry. DJ, go ahead. Introduce yourself.
Okay, DJ Martin. I'm from Waynesville, Illinois. Came to SIU in 75, graduated 79 and 80 with masters. So
Beautiful. Thank you. Susan and Matt, take it away.
Susan, you want to go first, or let me jump?
You're welcome to go, Matt.
Okay. Sure. Let me jump in, and if you hear the Golden Bachelor in the background, my wife is watching it right now. So just it's a quite a moving episode of that show. But anyway, just it's great to join you tonight. My name is Matt Kupek. I am the Vice Chancellor for Development and Alumni Relations and the CEO of the SIU Foundation here at SIU. Susan, of course, most of you know and know well. She is, we promoted Susan to the Director of Development over in the foundation. She's a rock star. I don't think Susan is she is always in a plane or traveling somewhere. Just an incredible representative of the college. And just, so basically, Susan is the one who brought the idea to me when you all know you're discussing the opportunity to fundraise for the need for a new house. Just quickly, background on me. I've been in Carbondale for 5 years. I've been pretty much in the fundraising field ever since I graduated. I'm an undergraduate at the University of North Carolina in Chapel Hill. I was a student athlete quarterback there for 4 years, and spent a majority of my career in Chapel Hill. And the late Carlo Montemagno called me about 5-6 years ago, wanting to talk about an opportunity to help turn some things around in terms of fundraising. I came to Carbondale and just I've been very pleased since being here. And so I've led a campaign for $2.4 billion. I've led 5 campaigns in my career, and altogether, where the institutions I've worked have raised nearly $5 billion. So I've got a little experience on my side. We've got a great team in the foundation. So we wanted to basically, when Susan brought the idea of how perhaps we can get involved, help with the fundraising, but also an opportunity to perhaps bring back AGR to campus. The foundation sits in Collier Hall. which is right across from the old AGR house. I did walk through there about 3 weeks ago. It probably would have brought back a lot of memories for y'all. Big. I was impressed with how big it was, or is. But as you know, pretty much Collier is the last building to be occupied. The foundation's moving out. And so the idea would be to bring back and bring y'all back and start a trend that would restore Old Greek Row, called kind of a new Greek Row. And I've got a quick PowerPoint I'd like to run through tonight that might address some questions, raise perhaps some others. There's a lot of questions about the feasibility and how it would work. Tomorrow I have a meeting with the Vice Chancellor for Student Affairs, the head of the Greek office, and I think representatives from 4 other sororities and fraternities. The word is out about what you all are even discussing, and this, you know, who knows? You guys could be the catalyst to do something really pretty cool here. Campus Lake looks as beautiful as ever. We're going to be installing a fountain in the very near future. You know, the goal for the university is to bring our students back on campus. We've had an increase in enrollment this past year of 2.3%. A lot of universities did not have an increase in enrollment. A lot of really good things going on at the institution. And at some point, you know, we'll talk about some of the things that may have or happened 15, 20, 25 years ago. But I talked a lot to our chancellor, who I have an incredible relationship with, about what we're discussing. He's excited about it. So we don't know if we can make it a possibility, but I thought I'd just jump into a PowerPoint if that's okay.
Absolutely.
And then don't worry, it won't take too long on the slides. This is, I did share this with Tom, Ron, Greg, but I'll go through it quickly. Just you know, this gave me a chance to look at your great history. I love reading about you all, the journey, some of the ups, a lot of the ups, a few downs. But I know in terms of the mission to make better men, you had incredible things you've done. I know the passion that exists within AGR, and we're excited that we can dream together and possibly make this thing happen. This is, again, just taking some of the history. This was just great for me. You know, I'm not going to bore you and go through every, but learning about the journey, where you began and where you are today. One of the things that stuck to me, hit me, was in the red here back in 15. You know, I understand, you know, early in the 2000s was when, you know, the whatever happened at Greek Row, you all, you know, I guess, you know, the whole almost demise of Greek Row, and but in 15, you did bring, you know, you had an architect, you came up with designs of about $2.5 million for a new house, and a feasibility study said you'd come up. They thought you'd be able to raise about half of that, at $1.25 million. So I did go out one morning, this shot on the left. I went out at 6 o'clock in the morning and took this picture on Freeman. And that's the current state, of course, you all know. Then on the right, and I also understand you've been working with an architect to possibly purchase 2 properties on Mill Street, build a connector in between, and that would have 24 beds, 12 baths. So you know, Ron, Tom, and I, and Greg, and Susan, have talked about that. But you know, today, then, you know, I know you've been in talks with Pennington, who's a very fine firm. Looked at it, been very impressed. They've had a great history of raising dollars for fraternities and sororities. I did get the chance to look at their deliverables, And then just started to look, okay. So what the proposal would be that you would work with the foundation. We would do the fundraising. You, of course, would be right by us. We'd be a team, and we would do all the things of a fundraising campaign, the many things I've done in my life many times over. And so this just looks at some of the services. Again, Pennington's a great firm, but what we offer in the foundation, they're recommending a feasibility study to take five months. I'm not sure I would do that, but I think we could probably get into this a lot quicker. I know we could get into this a lot quicker. And this is, again, not to put Pennington down at all. They do a great job, but I do know you're in a hurry. I do know you have some quick, big decisions to make them pretty soon. But this just looks at the feasibility study where basically they're recommending you go out, talk to 35 so, get a sense of if you'd raise money. You know, if we do a campaign, would you commit? How much we could commit? They'd come back and tell you all you could raise 2 million, 1.5, 1 million, or what have you. And not only have I done that, but we could do this. I think we would do it in a little different fashion. And then once you get through the 5 months or 6 months of a feasibility study, we jump into a campaign. Again, they outline it's. I've done the more the Cliff Notes version here. But I think that the part and on the feasibility, I forgot to mention, they would charge you. They would charge about 33,000 or somewhere in that range. We of course would not charge you anything. One thing to know, we would not charge you anything. If no dollars raised, you don't get charged anything from us. And we'll talk about that in a second. But this would be, they're talking about probably a 16-month campaign where you try to rev up and get very excited about joining together to support this great opportunity. You know, they gave a range of hiring. They'd bring a fundraiser at $8,000 to $14,000 per month. So we just took the high end, the low end there. And you could see that the cost for, again, and I'm just putting the facts out here. I'm not really opining on anything, but Pennington would cost you $131,000 to $215,000 in this phase, whether you raise any money or not. You see the $100,000 for us. You'd only pay if you raise. So we charge 5%, but it would only be on dollars that are in. It's not even on pledges. So if we had failure, we wouldn't charge you a penny. So you'd never be out of pocket any expenses with us. So when you add them both up, Pennington is, you know, could be, again, I may be a little off on this, but based on their contract, about 165 to 250,000, we'd be 100,000. You know, just this note right here that I just mentioned, that with Pennington, you're going to pay that if you bring them on for both the feasibility study and also the running the campaign. On our side, you know, that 100,000 could be zero. We wouldn't want it, but that assumes we literally bring in cash of $2 million, and it would be 100,000 out of that. So that's a pretty big difference between the two right there. Now this is Pennington's. You know, their services, the consultant will work no more than 2-3 projects at a given time. And again, they'd bring in other resources. It's a very good firm. And there's a few questions. I won't go through this, and I apologize because you all haven't seen this. And Tom, perhaps we can get this to everybody afterwards. But then, you know, this is just if you were to what we did, we looked into our database right now. This gives you a sense of, this is alums of AGR giving history to the university in aggregate. You can see we've had 21 donors give a collective who have given individually $10,000 or more. The total is $1.5 million. So there's 891 of the brothers of AGR who have given a total of $1.7 million to the university. Now, again, to a cause like this, many may step up and many of them be donors to the university. And then on the bottom is a big one for us. This is, and I'm going to hit a slide in a second of the many resources we're going to make available to you if we want to proceed. If you would ask us right now, our ratings, our current ratings, and we would get our great research team to dive into this more. This is based on, we think, and so when we say a gift range, that's $1 million gift over a 5-year period. So that's how many we think within the 891 that we have in our files. Again, this is kind of the science that would go behind the feasibility study and help us develop a campaign plan to try to raise, anywhere from $1.5 million to $2 million. This is we have 62. We're going to have 69 members soon of the foundation. The circle represents those who would have some input, some more than others. Of course, Susan would be a key lead. We've got things like a planned giving expert who again, we're looking for a cashier, but they're who's a rock star in herself. We've got the annual fund, we've got communications, we've got research, we do all the gift processing, we handle everything that's involved in fundraising. These are the assets that we would deploy to help on this effort. So it's a pretty good number. And I will tell you, this is a team that we are now in a $500 million campaign at the university. It's the 5th largest campaign in the history of Illinois Public University. So without sounding too cocky, we know what we're doing. And this is a very, very, very talented team. We have more than tripled what we were raising, just a few years ago. And we're really excited about the direction we're heading, and which helps in the direction our university is heading. And we strongly feel that being able to bring AGR back on campus would be great for not only recruitment, but for retention, for the entire atmosphere that goes on. It's again, in Collier Hall, we can only, for those of you like me who were not there when Oak Creek Row was alive and well, just it must have been incredible. That beautiful location, to have that activity there, it almost gives you the goosebumps thinking about it. And, this is, again, just a reminder, everybody knows this. This is an aerial view of Schumann Hall. And again, so the plan would be, the university is going to tear down all these buildings. Building right now, I'm told, is talking to our director of facilities, who I'm meeting with tomorrow at 9, by the way, to discuss this further. And the chancellor will be at that meeting. It's about $300,000. There's a new wet method that contains the asbestos and everything that we can do with the EPA. We need the EPA approval. It'd be $150,000. And we could take that down for $150,000. The idea is then we would build a new house right there. Right in that spot. We would start with 2, and then eventually, again, we're going to dream big things here. But we think, based on my meeting tomorrow with 4 other organizations, we think there could be a real good momentum builder here, and you all could be that catalyst. It's it's beautiful. You all know this, and there's plenty of parking. I've been driven over at Mill Street. I've driven into the parking lot in the back just to see what it's like. That could be a nice option for sure. It's not on campus. It's near the rec center. And this to not only bring AGR home, but then to start the whole reemergence of Greek Row would be just an incredible thing for the university. Again, there's a lot of details, and you're going to have a lot of questions for me in about a minute. Then I thought this was just the last one I had. This was the University of South Carolina. Just looking at Greek Village, just looking at how some of these other universities have been talking to the Vice Chancellor for Student Affairs. And it was really interesting how similar it looks to Old Greek Row here on our Carbondale campus. So, that's what we would propose is that we together would join forces. We would raise the money. We would sit down and we would get going fast. There's a lot of giddy up here. And you know, the earliest that Schumann Hall can be torn down would be this summer. And so, you know, I recognize there's a real concern about the existing house and whether that, you know, really is livable space. So we do know that urgency. The idea would be, and this is the devil in the details going forward, to tear down that house. And then, you know, we would, the foundation for the first time in its 80-year history is now running 3 buildings through us. So I've become a very good, much more knowledgeable on construction, and we've formed, you know, all the contracts you would need with the university. You know, ownership would be something we would have to talk about and figure out. And then working, you know, how that would be, you know, would the money be then raised and would the building be turned over to the university? Would that, you know, be run under housing? You know, what would that kind of relationship be? And I've talked to the student vice chancellor. You know, certainly if you all raise the money, there'd have to be great concessions by the university to work with you all on that. Certainly, you know, contracts are going to be big, and I recognize again what happened years ago. But I'm dealing with 3 projects right now, including a 44,000 square foot building that we're going to build on the site of McAndrew, the former site of the former McAndrew Stadium. And we just finalized the contract with the university on that. So there'd be a lot of negotiations. But again, there are devil in the details, but we think this would be an incredible opportunity. We would love to have you all back on campus. And so, Tom, I think I'm going to stop there. Susan, you have anything you want to add? And certainly we anticipate some great questions. Susan, anything you want to add?
I think she dropped off.
Okay. Well, she's letting me go solo. So just again, it's you know, I know many of you on this call. I understand the passion you have, and that's a beautiful place to start for what we're talking about. It's not, you know, it's a climb, it's a mountain we got to climb. I'm not going to say it's easy, but I will tell you that collectively, I believe we can go very far and go far together.
Matt, if it's all right with you, we'll open the floor to questions.
Sure, that'd be great. Susan, anything you want to add? Susan? Looks like she's frozen.
Sorry about that. I'm on hotel Wi-Fi in Charlotte, North Carolina.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
I turned my video off. Okay,
Yeah.
I turned my video off because I'm on hotel Wi-Fi in Charlotte, North Carolina. I'm at an ag law conference, which has been amazing already today. But no, I mean, I missed the last part, but I think everything Matt presented, I appreciate, first of all, that Matt brought him this opportunity. Tom, I thank you and Ron for bringing it to me after you met with the real estate agent. Appreciate that you were willing to give us time to at least talk through this. I think this would be recruitment now for several years. And I think this would be a great way to even help your.
Thank you, Susan. Yeah, so just let's throw it up top. Any questions? And again, we will not have all the answers.
So if you
here.
lose me, it's because I'm on this Wi-Fi.
Okay. Darn Charlotte. Say hello to my daughter. She lives in Charlotte.
I think the biggest question that comes up in almost everybody's mind is ownership and control of the facility. And that's the question that continues to come up.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, that's, you know, there's certainly this would be built on university property. And we as a foundation are creating a real estate LLC right now to allow us to be able to do things a little differently and maintain ownership of property. So yes, Ron, that's something we would have to work at, and I don't want to pretend to have the answers right now. And you know, the beauty of it running through the foundation, your gifts would be you'd get your the advantage of the tax deductibility and you know that those types of things. But yes, that would be a big one, and I think again we're having a lot deeper conversations with the I think the university is going to have to be flexible. We're going to have to be creative. We have hired an architect, as Chuck said, and he said he'll have some drawings in a couple of days. I just talked to him earlier today. Chuck and I had a great talk with him. And Chuck did a great job representing what, you know, we think that would be in a new AGR house, a new look AGR house.
Man, I got a question. So if we, as a fraternity, if we raise $2 million, we'll throw out a number, and that money goes into the foundation, then what happens? I mean, is that money then remain within the foundation? Does
No,
it come out?
that would be used to pay for the construction.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh yeah. That's your money. I mean, that's the foundation has nothing. Yeah, that's your money. It's restricted to this. The beauty of, you know, again having, you know, right now I'm having another meeting tomorrow about LEED certification and all these types of things, gold, silver. The beauty of this, running through the foundation, we would be able to hire our own architects, make the decisions to who we want to hire as the construction manager if we want, or how a general contractor. So we get flexibility there that if we were by using non-state dollars. So I tell you, that gives you a lot of leadership and ownership of that process. You know, we work with the university's facilities people, but they're just, we have our architect right now. We've got a construction manager. And so that's the beauty of it. You get, you know, that's the other thing. Again, this is not having all the answers. Would there be a sense of what would be the look, the university or the design? You know, would it be like a new neighborhood where maybe you get 4 kind of options? I don't know that. And again, I don't want to mislead in any way, but these are questions you can help inform this process. But I do believe it's got to be a negotiated deal. And I think if we're building a building, and that if we could bring a $2 million building, I think we got a lot of leverage. I'm not negotiating against the university because I am an employee, but I do having, as Greg Webb could attest to, that the foundation sees and serves a role as an accelerator, and we do have a lot of flexibility there, and we do weigh again. I don't want to sound cocky here, but we do weigh a pretty heavy stick, swing a pretty heavy stick here.
But another technical question is, so it's 5%. The foundation charges 5% on the money in. Is that a one-time fee, or is that, I mean, if it takes this 5 years?
Only, again, if $100 comes in, we take 5%.
And it's only, it would be one time.
One time.
Okay.
That's right. Again, there's
the reason I'm asking that question is sometimes, I mean, and I've worked with other foundations, but on fundraising campaigns, but sometimes they will take 5% a year, as even though it takes you 5 years, you know, you're paying that as an ongoing basis. So I just wanted to make sure that we were clear.
No, it's just, you know, 2 million comes in as 100,000, but it's only if 2 million comes in cash.
Sure.
There's not pledges or anything like that.
Matt, Taj Davis, I got a few questions. A compelling presentation. I appreciate your time and putting that together. Got to give a little bit of history here, and I'll try to be brief because I know time is of the essence. But I've been involved with the fraternity for 30 years. Several on here have been involved with the fraternity for more than 50 years. But in the 30 years that I've been involved with the fraternity and SIU, I've heard about a New Creek Row. This is at least the third, and I really think it's the fourth time.
About the what?
None of those. I'm sorry.
It's the fourth time about what?
That there's been talk within the university of rejuvenating or building a New Creek Row. So there's a lot of skepticism in me and several others on this call. So my question is, what's different? Because I've heard this 3 times before in the last 30 years.
Yeah, I think we've got a great chancellor. And candidly, I think I'm really good at what I do. We're building 3 buildings that in the foundation has never built one in 80 years. And that's new. We're getting the prime real estate on campus, right there at the old McAndrews site. We're going to build a welcome center that's going to kick ass of any university in the state of Illinois. It's going to be a great place for alumni to come back, a visitor center, start recruiting tours. So yeah, I do think, and I hope Greg would echo this. We like to think we're creative and innovative. We get to yes. We've already been able to make things happen that we were told could not be happened or would have had happened. I don't want to, sound like ignorance of what that's been said. We're making it happen. And
I would completely agree with you on the chancellor. The chancellor appears to be the best chancellor I've seen in 30 years as well.
Yeah,
so I completely would agree with you, and I don't mean to sound adversarial, but I'm very skeptical because of the past. We had a project, or we had a property purchased in the early 2000s that we were going to convert to a house, and the university says, "Oh, we're going to build a New Creek Row." That created, in my opinion, a division in our alumni, and nothing ever happened because of that property, and there's no Greek Row. So I'm very skeptical, though I think your proposal is very solid, and I hope it happens. I really do.
Yeah, and I'm not proposing the university is going to do this. I think it's going to be, we're going to ask, the fraternities and sororities to rise. We're going to support that and be right there to help raise all that money. So it's the university is going to have to make provisions and to negotiate and make it happen. So again, I just do know that I think Susan and I and our colleagues are pretty good at raising money. I know the passion you all have, and I think if we have the right project, I think we can lift this thing pretty darn high. And again, it kills us to see what's deteriorated over at Old Greek Row. I will just say that we see this as we want to become a university when an opportunity presents itself, we take advantage of it. We jump on it. Susan and I would not be doing our job if we let you just build that house on Mill Street. And I hope you can appreciate that. So we're going to fight like heck to try to get you home. And we certainly know that, that's an option, and you've got plans, and we think we could offer a better option, but there are details to work out.
Matt,
If I can add to Matt's comment on that and to kind of talk to, and I've been with the college for 28 years, so I've been around for a lot of those conversations on revitalizing Greek Row. But, and Matt, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think one time this conversation ever started at the foundation first, taking it to the university with a pathway to get it done.
Matt and Susan, it's Jake Rentleman. Can you hear me?
We got you, Jake.
Okay. I think follow up what Tadge was saying there. I think whenever the university has a contract to tear 116 down, I think that'll show us that you mean business.
Yeah.
All right, Matt, Chuck Schaub. You had mentioned when we talked that you had some other interests from other groups. Can you elaborate on that, who they are?
Susan helped me. I'm meeting with 4 tomorrow, and I don't know who they are, Chuck. I apologize for that.
I haven't seen that list, so I'm not sure the names of them.
Are they Greek organizations?
They are.
Yes.
You had mentioned to me Teak was one of them.
Teak is one, yes. And then the other three, I don't know who they are. And I apologize for that.
Is Farmhouse one of them? I don't know if Farmhouse has enough right now.
Yeah. I apologize. I was not in a fraternity. I guess I was football. But all my daughters were in sororities and my son's in a fraternity, and I've become a big fan of Greek life through them. I think it's a wonderful thing. So, Chuck, I got to get better on knowing all the names, but I'll report back to you who they were.
Thank you.
Matt, this is Tom Meyer, and got a couple of questions. Has there been any advancement of the effort to find temporary housing for the AGRs should we move out of the Freeman Street location? Is question.
Yeah, no, I apologize. Tomorrow, when I as part of that discussion with those 4 other organizations, the Student Affairs Vice Chancellor and I are going to talk about that.
Question number 2 is, we really appreciate you coming on tonight. You know, you've given us some great information. No matter what direction we go, would the SIU Foundation be willing to help us raise money for an on or off campus location?
Yeah, that's the one thing, Tom, and I have my CFO checking on that about the off campus location. We think we can do that. We just want to make sure. But if that's the case, we will support it. Yes.
Thank you. That's all I had.
Hey, Matt, this is Rick Hyatt. Can't thank you enough for coming on tonight, you and Susan and everybody here. About foundations, and maybe you alluded to that when you talked about your LLC, that can you do things other than philanthropic and educational in nature? We're talking about building a building, and we've had some issues come up with laws concerning foundations and charitable organizations. So that's a question I have. And the second thing that we got to really figure out is the men left 116 Greek Row because they could not get anything repaired, improved, fixed, or any's attention of housing to support the house. The house was literally falling down around them while they were there. Now, there's no question in my mind that Matt and Susan and the foundation can raise this money. I know what you can do. I've seen it, I've watched it, and I congratulate you for it. So that isn't even a question in my mind. But these other 2 issues are.
Yeah, I'm with you, Rick. I'm raising hell right now with our facilities people. Or Chancellor, I've gotten in his ear, I will tell you, again, this is our 3rd such. We have 3 now buildings being built through the foundation, and in 80 years of the history, not one had been built. So we have brought, which I would call, my experience working at the University of North Carolina, a foundation that has billions of dollars of assets. Again, everything is to support and advance the university. But I will tell you, the creation of the real estate LLC, I get calls regularly about people wanting to either donate properties or wanting to make a deal. And our foundation is beginning to now, and Greg's heard this, thinking about, if there's additional ways to generate revenue, that then can support our students and our faculty and our university, we're going to entertain that. So I'd like to think this is not your grandmother's foundation, and nothing against my good nanny, but it's we've got to be innovative. We got to be entrepreneurial, and there are, yes, Rick, I agree on the maintenance and those things. But again, the way I look at it, I'm going to be negotiating with you guys. Again, I'm not always against, but if we were to raise money to build a building, hell yeah, we're going to get some great. We're going to negotiate some great things along those lines of supports, and I don't know exactly what that would be in those negotiations, but I've already told the Chancellor and I've already told the Vice Chancellor Student Affairs I said, we're talking about a group that might build a building on our campus for $2 million. Hell yeah, we're going to make it happen. We're going to work with them. Again, I don't know. You guys will be a good negotiating team, but again, that's I'm not giving you a lot on the details, and I apologize for that. And I do know you're on this tight schedule, but I do believe it would be different, Rick. Yeah, I've read that history, and I've heard your personal stories of it, and you know, this then personally then to walk through that the Schumann Hall and to see, you know, good God, it was huge. How incredible that must have been. You know, things like I will give you an example. You know, there are 11 current members, I believe, living in the house. You know, what happens if we build a house? Again, we're talking here 24 rooms, and we have 15. You know, or is the university going to try to put 9 people in there? Is that something we will be against? Again, now I'm not going to say what I think you should do or not, but if you're building a $2 million building, I think we should have some say in that. So those are the types of things I think would be part of the negotiations.
Greg's got his hand up, and we're running out of time.
Okay, sorry.
I've enabled the waiting room, so let's maybe Greg, go ahead.
Thank you for that, Rick. You know I come into this situation with a bias because I've watched Matt Kupek and I've known Susan Graham for as long as Rick Hyatt and Steve Wyatt and several other of you have known Susan as doers. But I have a sincere and significant appreciation for both the capability of the SIU Foundation under Matt Kupek's leadership, and Rick Hyatt, to your observation about, you know, knowing the fundraising aspect. I think what is equally impressive to me is the can-do that the foundation now has in being a facilitator or an accelerator. Taj, I take on board the lots of stops and starts that we've had with maybe half-hearted or wholehearted promises of a renewed Greek Row. But I am here to tell you that, you know, Matt made mention of a couple of 3 buildings that are coming to the SIU campus. I am a stern believer that the separation between Matt Kupek and Austin Lane is minimal, that they are a team of doers, and I fully expect that Greek Row will get revitalized because that's what their intent is to do. And so that's where I land on this. I know that there is a lot of skepticism in this group and maybe with our alumni group more broadly defined, but I have a high degree of confidence and an immense amount of confidence that this will come to fruition. And if we're not part of Greek Row, that we will have an eternal regret that we didn't move this direction.
I have another question to Jake Rendelman here. When you're doing your fundraising, I know you were looking at the members of the fraternity. Well, you also, since we are associated with agriculture, will you look at corporate gifts such as naming the chapter room for X number of dollars?
Absolutely.
Of that type?
Absolutely. This is going to be a team effort, Jake. We're going to extend our arms, and we're going to bring a lot in together with us. And it would be a priority of the college. Again, and I want to go back to what Taj and Greg and said and others about Chancellor Lane. He is a phenom, and he is really excited about bringing this old Greek Row back to life. He's been talking about bringing students back on campus, at least for the last 2 years. And you know, this would be a great way to begin that. So, yes, Jake, this will be a team effort. There is no I in this AGR, it's a we. And, you know, we'll be asking a lot. And again, Susan is just an incredible asset She's got a great way about her. She's very aggressive. Susan is she's got the killer instinct, which we like. And yeah, it's so again, I know we're going too late, but we're excited. Susan and I would talk to you guys anytime, anywhere. And we'd love to just, I know there are a lot of questions but I think we'll have some more answers real soon. And you know, I know you got to make a decision. And I know mid-November was one of the deadlines which we're nearing. But we'd like for you to help us negotiate what the new old Greek road, when the new Greek road is going to look like. You all can help shape that.
Thank you, Matt. Thank you,
Okay.
Susan. Anybody else have anything very pressing? Because we want to be able to close this session out if possible with no due disrespect. Are we good?
Thank you all.
Thank you all.
Appreciate it.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Have a good rest of the meeting.
You bet.
Thank
Thank
you
you. Goodbye.
very much. Okay, so we do have Aaron Parker in the waiting room.
If you guys need to take a 2-minute break, we can. If not, we're going to carry on. Let's carry on, hearing none. Aaron Parker's with Pennington. Admit him, Rick, and we'll do a very quick introduction of ourselves so that we're warm and friendly to Aaron.
Will do.
Hello, Aaron.
Good evening, gentlemen.
Good evening.
Aaron, thanks for joining us tonight. We really appreciate it. So that you kind of have a sense of who's in the room. We're just going to do a very brief introduction of ourselves and where we're from, or maybe what role we have in the organization, and then we'll jump start and we'll make sure you are given plenty of time.
I love it. The pleasure's all mine.
Rick Story.
Yes, I'm Rick Story. I live in Elk Grove Village, Illinois. I was in school in '75, pin number 200, and I'm the person in charge of communication and website and newsletters for the fraternity.
And I'm already impressed with you, Rick, given the content and the numbers that you provided. So keep up the great work.
Okay, thanks.
I'm Tom Meyer, president of the Alumni Association, and you know me very well by now, Aaron.
Yes, I've enjoyed every bit of it.
Tad, you're next.
Good evening, Taj Davis. Live in Petersburg, Illinois. Initiated into AGR in '94, graduated in '98. Yes, I did do it in 4 years. Been involved in the Alumni Association off and on, but just recently got reappointed onto the board a couple weeks ago.
That corn looks awful green there in Illinois this time of year.
It does, yeah. A lot of fungicide.
Ron Brohammer.
Hi, Ron Brohammer. I've initiated the conversation with you, I think probably a couple of years ago. Past president of our Beta Alpha. I go back to near the beginnings of Alpha Gamma Rho, LEAC, and pin number 25 in Alpha Gamma Rho. And I live in the Kansas City area, Lee Summit, Missouri. So we've had several conversations, and Tom has also kept me up on the conversations that you and he are having.
And involved nationally. So thanks to your service, both locally and nationally.
Jim Miller.
Jim Miller. I'm the treasurer of the Alumni Association. Live in Nokomis, Illinois. Graduated in '83. I'm a local agriculture banker in Wood, Illinois.
Rick Hyatt.
Hi, Aaron. Rick Hyatt. I'm from Pontiac, Illinois. I graduated in '70. The executive secretary for the Alumni Association, and I do farm management and investments, and I'm the third oldest on this call.
Steve Wyatt.
I'm the fourth oldest, but anyway, I graduated in 1970. I'm a former board member and a past president of the Alumni Association. Now I
Al.
live in Effingham, Illinois.
Al.
I'm Al Osterlin, live in Albion, Indiana. Have farmed forever. Graduated in 1971. And currently I'm scholarship chair, have been on the board, have been president of the board over the years.
Thank you. Jake Rendelman, please.
Jake Grendelman, I graduated in 1965, master 76. I was a charter. I'm the old guy, charter member of LEAC and also of Beta Alpha. My PIN number is 11, and I'm obviously retired from teaching and farming. And as far as the fraternity is concerned, I've played a part in just about every office, I think, of the Alumni Association. And in fact, my wife and I, we kept the mascot till he passed away, Barry Bernard, the Saint Bernard. So, in fact, he's buried there by where the house was.
David. David, you're on mute, buddy.
Yes. I'm here, David Lagerhausen, PIN 406. I'm just a member of the alumni board.
Taj. Oh, no, I'm sorry. We already did Taj. Joe Bockhold.
Yes. Joe Bockhold, live near Camp Point, Illinois. Initiated in 2002, graduated in 2006, and happy to be able to be a part of this and help with assisting the alumni board.
Doug Wood. Doug, you're on mute. Okay, we'll go to Greg Webb.
Doug Wood.
Okay. Go ahead, Doug.
PIN number 248. Doug Wood, Mattoon, Illinois. Been around quite a while, not as long as some and more than others, but very interested in what we got to find out. Thank you.
Thank you, Doug. Greg Webb.
Hi, Aaron. We've met before in the Capitol campaign, so good to see you again. I'm PIN number 201, live in Chicago, Illinois, past board member of Beta Alpha, past president, and now current national board member here through 24. Thanks for joining us.
We're going to go on to Chuck Schaub, please.
Hey, Aaron, glad to see you. I'm just now getting back involved with this group. I've gone for a long time, living in Kaufman, Texas for the last 20 years. I came in 75 with Rick Story and Greg. We were all pledge brothers at that time. So we're looking forward to working with you.
DJ Martin.
Yep, I was another 75 once, so it's great to be back with the group again and become involved. I'm in Central Illinois in the little town of Waynesville. So
Sounds good. Did I get everybody? I didn't miss anybody, did I? Okay. Aaron, I know we chewed into some of your time with these introductions, but I felt it was pretty important that you kind of know who's in the room, and we'll give you enough time to do your piece, and you don't have to worry exactly about 30 minutes.
Well, I appreciate the floor. Nice to meet all of you. Aaron Parker. I'm originally from Holstein, Iowa, Western Iowa, so Midwesterner. Now living in Nashville, Tennessee. If my mother were here, she would tell you that my father stole the opportunity to be an AGR by brainwashing me to the University of Iowa, which is not the land grant in the state of Iowa. Grew up farming though. That's how I got brainwashed. I was listening to Gary Dolphin announce Hawkeye football games in the tractors on fall Saturdays. So that's why I always love my work with Alpha Gamma Rho. Meeting the men always reminds me of home and the farm. Still have a passion for agriculture. My family still has 2 farms on both sides of the family, but we cash rent those, but still very involved in that way. So a pleasure to be with you. Nice to meet all of you, the new faces, and good to be reconnected with those I do know. I've got a couple slides, and when I say a couple, I told Tom that I would put together maybe 5 or 6 slides. I think I have 10 with real content on it. So let me do this. Normally I'm on Teams, so screen sharing on Zoom is just a little different. By way of a thumbs up, can everyone see that?
Yep.
Awesome.
Yep.
So in addition to my being from Western Iowa, growing up in an ag background, I mentioned I'm a University of Iowa grad. I'm also a fraternity man. I'm a Phi Psi from the University of Iowa. I got my career start with the University of Iowa. That's where I started my development career for the University of Iowa Children's Hospital. Was much in the same shoes as you, serving as a chapter advisor, lending time on my own board, House Corporation board. And then I met my wife and determined that in order to make that work, I needed to move to Nashville, Tennessee. And it's hard to raise money for an Iowa Children's Hospital from Nashville, Tennessee. Was advising the fraternity, raising money, and I met one of my now colleagues who said, "You're advising the fraternity, raising money. Why don't you do both of those together?" And so 9.5 years ago, joined the Pennington and Company staff. Some of you are already familiar with Pennington and Company, but I thought I'd boil this down as briefly as possible. I always explain our business in 2 parts. That is our fundraising work. That's what we're most known for, largely because that's the most touch and feel part of our business. When a new house goes up on a campus or somebody sees a renovation of a chapter house, they say, "How did you do that?" Pennington's name gets associated with that because of our fundraising work to help bring that to life. So we've worked with almost 1,000 House Corporation boards on 178 different college campuses. We have been on Southern Illinois' campus. We worked with the men of Phi Sigma Kappa. We ran a feasibility study for them, which I'll explain what that is, and did have a positive recommendation for a capital campaign. However, they did get suspended from campus right as we delivered that positive news to the House Corporation Board. So I think they still have a vision for the future, but need to return to campus before they enact on that vision. So have a familiarity with campus, the Greek Life office there, some of the nuances to enrollment and things like that, that's not new to us at Southern Illinois, things that we can do. And knowledge that's good as we interact with your alumni. So that fundraising part is half of our business. The other half, or less recognizable part of our business, is alumni communications. We help local chapters in facilitating their alumni newsletters. I know the home office of AGR used to help in producing the Crescent newsletter. They stopped that work at the home office and now refer a lot of that work to us to help produce the AGR Crescents for those groups, not self-producing it. It adds consistency, adds a professionalism to the Crescent newsletter, but also we focus on alumni engaging content. When we charge undergraduates to produce content, it's largely undergraduate focused content. We know men like you want to be reconnected with their peers, shown successful men within the fraternity, and so we highlight and spotlight those alumni while re-engaging them with their peers that they went to school with. Through all that, we've raised about just over $1 billion. That's with a B, $1 billion in support of Greek Life. That's more than all of our competitors combined, times a couple. And so we do think our experience speaks for itself when we're able to have conversations with alumni, speak to the transformational experience that it provides young men, and certainly connections within the agricultural industry. Capital fundraising, major gifts, alumni communications are the two sides of our business. Also, feel welcome to interrupt me if you do have questions at any one time. So I see this says farmhouse at the top, but these are all AGR chapters. We've raised about $26.7 million for AGR in the local chapters. That does not include the active national campaign that's just surpassed $15 million. So we are well versed with Alpha Gamma Rho. I've had the pleasure of leading a couple of those myself. Florida in that $4 million capital campaign, and then also Maryland there did about $1.6 million renovation to that chapter house that you see there. And then I was also on the strategy team for the University of Tennessee at Knoxville. So I have a deep history. Again, my passion for AGR runs deep. I always enjoy working with those men to realize a project like this. A lot of times people ask, is now a good time to fundraise? I was actually at my local chamber meeting over lunch today, and somebody said, did the market downturn hurt you at all? Does the upcoming election pose any risk to you? You can see our giving statistics here, and specifically the gift sizes that we've seen over the last 2 years. And so I would tell you, and we'll get into the science of fundraising, the economic climate doesn't have a significant impact on our major capital campaigns, largely because of the gifts above the $10,000 level. Typically, we see those men a little bit better insulated from an economic downturn. It changes gift vehicle, but wealthy individuals still give to charity, and sometimes give more to charity in a time of need when they know other individuals who are living paycheck to paycheck or aren't as philanthropic aren't going to make those gifts through that hard economic time. So those high net worth individuals tend to give and continue to give, and sometimes give more through those climates. So Tom and I have talked a lot about the future of Alpha Gamma Rho and Beta Alpha at SIU. He shared with me this rendering of that beautiful, opportunistic new chapter house or renovated chapter house. And so wanted to talk about our campaign work and how we realized 309 East Mill. And if you hear nothing from me tonight except for one slide, this is the slide that I would pay attention to. This is the campaign science that drives all of our work. And I'll start here in the upper left. Generally in a capital campaign, I think the common misconception is, hey, we've got 1,000 alumni. If we ask every alumnus for $1,000, we've got $1 million raised. Well, it doesn't quite work like that. The average participation of any capital campaign that we've run tends to be between 17 and 23%. So about 1 in 4 alumni would make a gift, or we could expect for Beta Alpha, 1 in 4 alumni to make a gift to a capital campaign. The second rule up here to you involved in business, banking, or otherwise probably would agree with this. 80% of the production comes from about 20% of the population. You as fraternity man probably think about chapter meeting in much the same way, or even this board. There's a small number of alumni doing a significant amount of the work. Same is true in a capital campaign. We find that about 80% of the dollars that we raise in a specific capital campaign come from 20% of those who participate. So if we have 1,000 alumni, we're looking at 200 that would participate. 20% of those 200 would realize 80% of the total dollars raised. And the last rule is this pyramid here at the bottom. We generally find in any capital campaign, whether it be $1 million, $15 million, that there's about 10 alumni that help us realize 50 to 60% of that campaign. So if we're talking $1 million, we're talking $500,000 to $600,000 from 10 individual donors. Let me pause there for questions or reactions. This is what drives a lot of our process. A lot of times a group will come to us and say, we want to start asking for money. We have to do a little bit of homework before we embark upon a capital campaign and ask for money. We joke internally that if you ask for money, you're going to get feedback. If we ask for feedback, we might get money twice. And so we start with this homework assessment to engage with alumni, to ask for feedback on this vision for 309 East Mill, so that we can cultivate them for a future solicitation and know what they may be capable to give and what their interest level is, both voluntarily and financially. So this kind of demonstrates that campaign science. I know in talking with Tom, we're looking at $1 million, $1.2 million. Correct me if I'm wrong. I just put an even $1 million there. I mentioned Rick's great work in sending some numbers relative to the alumni database. Based upon my read of that, there's about 839 living alumni. This number was a little bit questionable, but generally we advise a group no more than 10% of your living alumni should be lost. And I know Rick had unsubscribed, undeliverable mail and things like that all in a lost, but I just rounded up for 10% of that 839. So we've got 750, 800 living alumni that could be donors to a capital campaign. AGR tends to strive above average relative to alumni participation. I mentioned that 17 to 23% average. I pulled the numbers of our about 18 capital campaigns for Alpha Gamma Rho. The average percentage participation was just above 24%. The men at Minnesota saw 44% participation. That's getting up into the pretty prolific percentage participations. I think the highest we've ever had is 58%. And so I put 20% just to stride in the middle of average. And that's what you see here is the 168 total donors that we would want to see to a capital campaign. How we start to stagger these gifts out is based upon that 80-20 rule of 20% of the population will help with 80% of the total. This leadership level black line, these 10 individuals, if you added up all of these gifts, one gift of $150,000 is 150, 4 gifts of 25 is 100. If you add these all up, you're a little north of 50% of goal. We would need these leaders to step up at those gift sizes to feel capable and confident in a goal of $1 million. So this kind of illustrates those 3 rules, those 3 principles of fundraising in what we call a gift chart on how we would realize $1 million. Head nods, all sounds good. So I talked about the homework portion of our capital campaigns. So we break our capital campaigns really into 3 parts. The first is the feasibility study, that's the homework. The second is the quiet phase capital campaign, which I'll talk about. And then the third part is a public phase groundswell grassroots fundraising effort. The feasibility study, I think, is the most valuable and most significantly important part of our work. That homework session lays the groundwork for the capital campaign, develops the prospect list, and cultivates those potential donors for a solicitation in the capital campaign. There are 5 intended outcomes of that feasibility study. That feasibility study is 5 months in length. So I think the first thing people hire us for is to test that campaign goal. Can we raise $1 million? And I know that was one of Tom's questions to me. He said, Aaron, do you think, knowing AGR and some of our conversations, that we could raise $1 million? Based upon your alumni, the capability, perceived capability of some of your alumni, I would say, yes, you have the capability to raise $1 million, but capability doesn't always equal willingness. And so the feasibility study is the test of a donor's willingness relative to their capability to prove, can we raise our campaign goal? Number 2 is project feedback. I mentioned earlier, if you ask for money, you'll get feedback. If you took a project out and asked for money, they would be ready to give you all sorts of feedback on 309 East Mill and this plan. In a feasibility study, we have the opportunity to take that plan out to garner feedback to ensure this is something that those alumni want to invest in. We chart trends in feedback, things they like, things they don't like, and we report those back out to you in the feasibility study report. Having a third party collect this feedback is extremely valuable. An alumnus can tell me everything they want about a project, good or bad. That's a confidential interview. And so I can share the feedback back to you all as the board without tying their name to it. It's a little easier for an alumnus to do that than it is an alumnus brother to brother. I know some alumni say, I'm very transparent and honest with my feedback to my brothers. But there's others that get a little emotional and they say, well, I don't want to offend the leadership group, and so I've colored my commentary. That's not needed in a confidential interview with a third party. We can deliver to you that feedback. The last 3 things are really the organization and strategy for a capital campaign. Through the feasibility study, we're meeting with folks, asking about the influential alumni. And if everybody mentions Jim Miller's name, I know Jim Miller needs to be involved in the capital campaign in order for the capital campaign to be successful. So we're very attentive to the names that come up most often and those influential alumni that need to be voluntarily involved in a capital campaign. I always compare this to a chapter meeting. A lot of times we have the elected chapter executive board making policy decisions on behalf of the undergraduate chapter. You've got a very vocal AGR sitting in the back of the room. He stands up and tells it how it's going to be. He's got a lot of social equity with the undergraduate chapter, and everybody follows suit with what that guy says in the back of the room. We know we need those influential alumni on board. And so listening to those names and understanding who that campaign leadership needs to be helps us in the early phases of the capital campaign. It speeds the buy-in. It's known vocal leaders that can speak to the value and priority of 309 East Mill and bring that to life. I've mentioned this a couple of times. I can't be redundant enough. Unlike university fundraising, where university development staff is out visiting with alumni on a routine basis, they might visit with an alumnus 5 to 7 times before making an ask for a gift. In the fraternity world, we're not afforded that luxury oftentimes. You've got a capital need project with a timeline, and so we need to cultivate and solicit those donors as quickly as possible. And so this feasibility study and the ask for feedback is our opportunity to sell the need for the project, the value of that project to those undergraduate men, and cultivate those alumni, pre-solicit them so that they're ready to make a gift when we ask them and make that solicitation. And the last is the campaign strategy, and this plays an effect on our campaign timeline, duration, size, scope, and cost. And so through the feasibility study, I say it's the homework session for you, but it's also the homework session for us. We're delivering to you at the end of the feasibility study that campaign goal, what we think you can realistically raise, given the feedback from your alumni. But then our team is developing that campaign strategy for who we need to solicit first, who we need to recruit as the leader, and how long that quiet phase capital campaign may take to raise those dollars. Questions about those 5 intended outcomes? Again, feasibility.
Yeah, Matt, this is Tom. I got a question, what you just said. I want a little more clarity about what you said with the seeking and getting answers and commitment from donors. Is that kind of a 1 meeting, 2 meeting ask and receive type level? Tell me a little more about that. I think everybody would probably like to know a little bit more about how that works.
Great question. And let me clarify feasibility study to capital campaign as well, Tom. So I'm going to broaden your question just slightly. In the feasibility study, what we would do is work with your team, do a little wealth analysis on your alumni population to identify the top 75 most influential alumni. Influential by social equity, influential by their success and their financial capability. We would reach out to those 75 and interview them face to face, much like a Teams meeting, virtual meeting, phone call. We would interview as many of those 75 as possible. Our goal in those conversations is to sheerly garner feedback. We have a list of 27 strategic questions that we ask, but we engage them with a dialogue, ask them their confidence in the alumni leadership. We ask them for feedback on the project and the project's importance. And then we ask them about their interest in volunteering and giving financially to a potential capital campaign. So generally, those men are providing an estimate of where they could see themselves giving. And so we show them a gift chart like this, and somebody may say, I could see myself in that $3,000 to $5,000 a year range. And so that's a conservative estimate of where they may see themselves. We take all of that feedback, stack that up against our other AGR feasibility studies of the past, other capital campaigns, to, as best as possible, predict the future on knowing what dollars we think you could raise in that capital campaign. So that's one visit. I call that the cultivation visit, the pre-solicitation. As we move into a capital campaign, so that feasibility study is 5 months in length. Then we start this capital campaign and the major gifts phase. This major gifts phase is usually 10 to 12 months. In that, we're working on a prospect list, I would say, of 125, 150. Our goal would be to personally solicit 75 to 100 of those. And generally, Tom, that is we've seen them in the feasibility study. We're asking for a meeting, but we are generally soliciting them on the first meeting in the capital campaign. It moves very quickly.
I see. I understand.
I will tell you, though, sometimes the hardest work comes after you make the ask. We advise our groups that it takes 6 to 8 touches to realize a gift. So that the feasibility study interview is 1, the solicitation is 2, but you may need to email and phone call follow up 3 more times to garner the pledge form to get that gift. They're sizable gifts, meaningful gifts, 5 and 6 figure level gifts. And so sometimes that's approval from spouse, conversation with CPA, and that's what requires the additional touches. But the actual ask comes sometimes meeting 1, meeting 2.
Okay, thank you. I understand.
So that was a good segue question too as well, Tom, because that describes the major gift phase of a capital campaign. Generally, that's 10 to 14 months, dependent on that size and scope of a capital campaign. Pennington and Company is engaged. A Pennington Company consultant like myself would help recruit the capital campaign board of volunteers. I know you all are lending some time. There might be some overlap of some of you serving on a campaign board of volunteers, but we want to complement you all and your leadership to keep you focused on the project vision. We want to recruit a new team of volunteers that would be solely focused on the fundraising effort. So we would recruit them. We would help train them on capital campaign solicitation, and then we would drive and direct that volunteer team throughout the quiet phase of the capital campaign to ensure we're seeing and soliciting the right individuals, maintaining pace to goal, and certainly overcoming any concerns, barriers, challenges that would present themselves in that major gifts phase of the capital campaign. Our goal through this major gifts phase would be to secure 2/3 to 3/4 of that $1 million. Then when you announce the campaign public, it already is perceived as successful. You've already got your perceived leaders on a contributors list. The general population then says, well, if Rick, Jim, Tom, Doug, David have all made a gift, this has got to be a slam dunk. I'll write my check. That's when we move into the public phase and direct mail. We're mailing collateral materials illustrating the vision for 309 East Mill to every alumnus with a pledge form to garner commitments to push us over the $1 million total. continued direct mail and celebration. It's my strongest recommendation to any campaign that I'm on to continued mail communication. Number one, because you'll have some fence riders out there that don't make a gift until they see either dirt turn or they're back at the celebration and they say, well, this is pretty nice. I should join this effort. And so there could be a 3-year runway until one individual makes a gift. Number two, and probably more important to me, is we want to steward those donors who make gifts. You know, if you stop communication, your donors are going to start to wonder what happened to the dollars that they gave and the vision of 309 East Mill. And if you continue communication, construction updates, etc., that's a good stewardship tool to make them feel good about the investment that they made in 309 East Mill. So I would say once you turn the fundraising nozzle on, never shut it off. If you get past your goal and are debt free and you continue to have men write $100 checks a year, that's great. That's an additional revenue stream. And so I know Rick's laid a good foundation of communication. We could just complement that. And part of the feasibility study would be to do an assessment of that, ways that we can continue to improve that. And we'd lend a little expertise on our experience within the industry to continue to refine that to best serve the alumni. This breaks down the feasibility study. Again, 5 months. Month 1 is material collection. We do data mining, determine the prospect list. Month 2 through month 4 is really those personal interviews. We develop a case statement piece, a collateral piece to have to talk with alumni, do those personal interviews. And then at the end of month 4 and into month 5 is when we're analyzing that feedback from alumni. We generally have feedback from 30 to 35 alumni face-to-face. We send a survey to an additional subset, but we're looking at that feedback in black and white to make some conclusions, recommendations in that strategy for how to move forward. And then I think the other thing that we always bring to the table, given our industry expertise, is the knowledge of how fraternities benefit young men. When I first started in this role 9 years ago, you know, one of the questions we asked in the feasibility study is, you know, Stephen, what was the most significant value of your AGR experience? And generally, an alumnus will bucket into 3 things, or AGRs will. I had enough AGR experience that I think people talk about their lifelong friendships. I imagine many of you today and the guys that you maintain contact with are guys that you met through Alpha Gamma Rho. 2 is social maturation. I hear a lot of guys within AGR say, you know, I grew up out on the farm or in an agricultural setting. I went to a big institution like SIU. I found my friends and matured socially through Alpha Gamma Rho. You know, I think of that myself. I grew up in a town of 1,500 people, went to a Big Ten institution. And so it was the fraternity that really matured me socially. And then 3 is leadership development. I think about guys who serve as the noble ruler. You know, they say, hey, I learned how to manage a business by being noble ruler and having those tough conversations with my AGR brothers. And so there's a lot of leadership development. Fast forward through the pandemic and some of the negative news media related to fraternities, I would say men, we ask the question of what's the significant value. We also ask a question about, you know, how do you perceive the values of fraternities today to be relative to the goals of higher education? You know, when I asked that question 9 years ago, people would say, well, for the same reasons I just told you about my experience, you know, lifelong friendships, social maturation, the leadership development. I would say more so today, people are asking the question, I don't know, you tell me, which gives us the opportunity to stand on a soapbox. But there's a lot of good research out there that proves fraternal outcomes. I know Alpha Gamma Rho in the home office is complementing this as well. But we can interject some of this into the case for support, into communication, to not only share why the AGR experience is valuable, but to prove the relevancy of fraternity life on a college campus and why that's so significantly important. Tom left his desk, so that's either a cue that I went over my allotted time or he ran to grab something. I asked Tom for a couple of questions, and I noted those, but I'll make sure I touch on Tom's question, but wanted to open the floor to any questions about material we've covered, campaign science, campaign process, and how it relates to 309 East Mill.
Good presentation. I don't know that I really have any questions. Having went through something similar back in whatever it was around 2000, a lot of the points, it jogged a lot of things in my mind around the donation levels and the amount of people and the private before public fundraising. But good information, good presentation.
Yeah, great. What may I ask, Tad? Where was your campaign experience? Was that church or another?
No, we kicked around doing a campaign with AGR 20 some years ago.
That time passes quickly, right?
Yes, it doesn't seem like it was that long ago, but it was.
Well, you don't look that old either, so.
Yeah. I don't know where Tom had to go to the bathroom or what.
I can.
Do you have a presentation, or do you just verbally talk about fees? I know Tom is aware, but how you guys get paid?
Yeah, that was one of Tom's questions, and I wanted to be sure to hit that. Wanted to see if there was any other questions relative to that. So I break down our fees like this. So the feasibility study is a flat-based fee. It's $25,000 for the 5 months worth of work, plus any printing, postage, and travel expenses. Our business post-pandemic has changed significantly. We used to travel face-to-face for those interviews. With the pandemic, one of the silver linings is that most individuals are accustomed to a virtual call like this. And so most all of our phone calls are via teleconference like this, face-to-face over Zoom or Microsoft Teams. So I tell a group, budget $2,500 for printing and postage. That'll get you all the way through a feasibility study. So $25,000, $27,500, all inclusive to get you front to back on the feasibility study. That gets you the campaign recommendation on, is this feasible and what is that capital campaign goal? The capital campaign is a little different. It's still flat-based fee, but like I say, we do our homework just as we're doing homework for you in that feasibility study. And so we don't feel a percentage-based fee. I know that was something Tom asked about, is what percentage of the capital campaign do you charge? We don't feel that ethical by the Association of Fundraising Professional guidelines. And so what we do is kind of put our neck on the line. At the end of the feasibility study, we deliver you the campaign recommendation. That might be, we tested $1 million. We feel a goal between $750,000 to $1 million is realistic. We deliver you also the campaign duration. So is that a 10-month campaign? Is that a 14-month campaign? But we deliver to you that scope of work and then a flat-based fee for that duration. So if it's a 12-month campaign, our average is about $9,500 right now on a campaign for that 12-month period. And so it's harder for me to anticipate or predict what that total cost for the capital campaign would be, but you'll know that coming out of the feasibility study for the size and duration of the capital campaign. Does that make sense?
It makes sense, but I guess I need a little bit more. Yeah. I need a little bit better guess. So if it's you were using $1 million campaign, so give me a guess. Or a range.
I would say our range we give is usually $8,000 to $12,000 a month, but I'm gonna say on a campaign of $1 million, probably I would anticipate roughly 108,000. And then we do offer gift fulfillment as well. This is something many of our other AGR groups have have wanted. You know, the capital campaign is significant in garnering the commitments. Usually those are 5-year commitments. To ensure the collection rate on those commitments, we offer a 5-year gift fulfillment, basically to send pledge payment reminders, return envelopes, acknowledgments for a gift. That is also a flat rate fee over a 5-year period. Generally comes out to the same gift fee or less than a credit card fee. So 2.5%, 2.7% to fulfill those gifts. We have about, I would advise a group to plan for 10% attrition on gifts. But with our gift fulfillment, we're seeing between 92 and 96% collection rate on those commitments, those pledge forms. So that can be an additional, you know, let's call it 3% for a conservative number of $1 million to fulfill those gifts.
I noticed, Greg, you have your hand up. Did you have something?
Yeah, thank you, Rick. Aaron, you may have already said it, but your observation about capacity versus willingness to contribute, I think that kind of goes toward Tad's question about if you're charging us, you know, not for argument's sake, $7,500, $9,000 to $10,000 a month. Will you tell us in the feasibility study what the willingness percentage is, or do you have a way in the feasibility to understand how enthusiastic our group will be about contributing versus an ability to contribute? Because to me, that's the secret about whether a campaign will last 8 or 12 months, or maybe 2 years or longer, and then we just kind of get to a place that we don't get what we need in the end.
That's a fantastic question, Greg. And so thanks for asking that. Absolutely. I think that's what groups pay us to do. You know, there's perceived capability out there, but they haven't been involved. And so what's their willingness to participate? You know, our goal is to identify those 75 most capable and talk them through the project and vision, pre-sell them on why this is valuable, and ask strategic questions about how this project ranks philanthropically. You know, Greg, how does AGR rank amongst your philanthropic priorities? And individuals usually answer that pretty honestly. You know, it doesn't, but it would if we moved to this project. Or, hey, you know, it's my church, SIU, and the local United Way before this. Okay. And some may even say, you know, I give $50,000 a year. This is the 4th priority, so I could see myself in that $3,000 to $5,000 range. And so I think that's what you're paying. That's what the significant value of the feasibility study is, because we get the opportunity to dialogue with those influential alumni, to read the feedback that they give us. And that's what I think our consultants are really talented in doing. They're major gifts fundraisers. And so they can kind of read between the lines of inclination sometimes. You know, a guy might say, well, this is a low priority. I'd give $3,000 to this. Well, maybe they're capable of 150, and they mention some things in feedback that they'd like to see. We know in developing the campaign strategy, hey, if we, you know, talk about an enhanced communication program, if we articulate the board's strategic vision, we know they'll be more bought in, and we could raise their profile to $10,000 a year. So we glean a lot of that information through that feasibility study interview. But then that gives us an indication on some personal willingness relative to capability. And then what we do at the end of the feasibility study is look at all of our other AGR feasibility studies. How does SIU's feedback compare to Florida's or Maryland's, or the trends in those feedbacks? And then we look at our comprehensive 30 years worth of history to kind of make an assessment. And that's where I say we try and predict the future. You know, a lot of groups will flip to the last page of the report because we list out all the estimates that we gave. So if I talk to everybody on this call tonight and you all gave me an estimate, you know, Tom's 3,000, David's 10,000, Rick's 5,000. If you we print all those estimates without names because it's a confidential interview. We print those estimates, but if you added all those estimates up, it's not going to equal what our campaign recommendation is. And that's what we're trying to predict is based upon that feedback, where do we see you going in a campaign? What is that capability? And that usually ends up in a range. You know, we test the Cadillac, if that's $1 or $1.2 million. We take this gift chart out and test. Do the alumni have the capability for that? You know, sometimes, especially in larger campaigns, we don't see alumni having the appetite for the full capital campaign. And so it might come back to say, actually, I'll use Alpha Gamma at Florida. They tested $6 million, I think. We came back with a $2 to $3 million recommendation. And so $2 million is the conservative low end. And conservatively, in this economic environment, we think you can raise $2 million. But if things go well and we make the stretch ask and people start to make the stretch commitments, we think $3 million is a realistic stretch fundraising goal. If you looked at that one of the intro slides, they're at 4.15 million. So, you know, people have stepped up to the plate in that campaign. AGR Maryland, Alpha Theta, similar story. So, yeah, we're making that assessment for you based upon our experience of where that willingness could take us relative to the capability. Because, you know, in conversations with Tom, I believe from his comments that you have capability at the $150,000 level. We need to survey, are those alumni willing at that level? Sorry, long answer to your question, Greg, but a very good question. Does that answer it?
Does.
Hey, Aaron, this is Rick Hyatt. I got
getting
a
at.
couple of questions for you.
Yep.
What's the mixture of involvement through the actual contact with the brothers for donations? Are you assisting with that on the phone? Are you coaching us? Are you going hand in hand? Can you explain the involvement of the actual asking for the money? And then my second question involves a timeline, which you may want to go to another slide, but answer the first one, please.
Yeah, so difference in feasibility study to capital campaign on the AGR involvement. I'll go feasibility study first. Really, month one is the heaviest lift for your team, your volunteer team. You know, we want to gather materials. We want to work with this team to help in identifying those 75 most influential prospects to create that case for support, that case statement piece. It's a collateral piece. I could show you a sample from another AGR group. But once we have that case for support, the prospect list, it's really up to the Pennington and Company team and the lead consultant to phone call those and interview those. We might come back to you, say in month 4, and we've got 3 top prospects that haven't answered the phone. I thank those darn car warranty callers that people don't answer their phone as readily as they once did. And so maybe there's a couple guys out there that we haven't got in touch with yet. We might circulate those names amongst this team to see if somebody can give us a soft open the door to say, hey, Rick, Aaron Parker's been calling. We really need your feedback on the future of AGR at SIU. You know, take his call, offer that feedback. So there might be a little phone calling for those outstanding individuals toward the end of the feasibility study. But a lot of the feasibility study, once we're past that material collection, is our team's heavy lift in those confidential interviews. That changes a bit when we get to the capital campaign, because I mentioned we want to recruit a new set of volunteers, a campaign board of volunteers that is specifically focused on fundraising. You know, Pennington and Company is going to help recruit and train and manage that team. I like to suggest we want to inherit all of the administrative work. So gift logging, database management, contact updates, and leave the fun work to the volunteer team, which is phone call to your peers talking about this 309 East Mill project and the need for their support. in a solicitation, our research suggests the best solicitation is one volunteer, a Pennington and Company consultant, and the donor prospect. And the reason for that is we get the story that is the value of Alpha Gamma Rho, complemented with the science and dedicated nature of a consultant to make a financial ask, and then the prospect themselves to respond to that ask. What we find if we only have a piece of that is, one, if we have a volunteer with the story of AGR, sometimes they get to the ask and they go real light. They say, give whatever you can, or they don't even make the ask. We need to make a strategic ask of those individuals relative to their capability. If we have the Pennington and Company employee without the volunteer, we have the campaign science, but we don't have the heartstrings to tell the SIU Beta Alpha story of impact. You know, I can tell a good fraternity story, but I can't tell your story about what it was like to live in the walls of Alpha Beta at SIU in Carbondale. So,
okay, my second, thank you. My second question is right there. The timeline from for the major gift campaign. With the numbers that you were talking about, that seems like a long time.
10 months to solicit 75 to 100 people, that's soliciting 10 guys a month. That's moving at a pretty good clip. Because you got to reach those, set the appointment, have a meaningful conversation about a gift. So soliciting 10 guys a month is a pretty good pace for a capital campaign.
Yeah.
And again, that's where we want to secure $650,000, $750,000 of the $1 million goal. And so we got to be laser focused. It's for AGR groups, I can use this analogy. We want to hunt with a rifle, not with a shotgun. We want to be laser focused on the individuals that can make the biggest impact. And so when we look at this gift chart, as we approach the capital campaign, we talk about soliciting inside out, top down. Inside out, meaning you all would be some of the first that we would ask for a gift. And we would ask for stretch commitments. Wealth is relative, but as long as people stretch in their support, the next person will follow suit. And so we work inside out and then top down. If we know that 50 to 60% of our success is in these 10, we want to spend and start the major gifts phase, spending all of this time identifying and talking with the individuals who can be in that 10 leadership level donor category. And so being very strategic, but seeing 10 individuals a month, it's moving at a pretty good pace.
Thank you.
Hey, Aaron, I have one question on how important or detrimental is it for us to kind of inform the Brotherhood of what we are doing before a feasibility study or a campaign starts? What is your recommendation on how that approach should be?
So that is where we become really powerful as strategic counsel on your messaging to your alumni. You know, I would tell you never announce a capital campaign until you've got 2/3 to 3/4 of your dollars raised. If you announce a capital campaign or share too much detail, there are going to be some savvy individuals that know if you have these plans, I know it's going to take capital, and the next phone call is going to be about money. Knowing that 50 to 60% of your success is going to come from 10 people, we want to strategically target and talk with those influencers before this goes public. We want them to feel special and involved before the general population. If those donors hear about this in a capital campaign before our call, the response generally goes like this: Rick, that's great. I read about it. I'll make a gift. Just mail me a pledge form. And that could be the difference between $5,000 and $50,000. They write a $5,000 check. We didn't get the opportunity to ask for the $50,000 need. And so we leave money on the table in that way. And so my advice to groups is always this. You're probably like, well, Aaron, we can't say anything until like 20 months from now, I suggest we can talk about the need for a building. So kind of cultivate the ground before you plant, right? We want to talk about the need so that when we're asking for money, the need isn't new. We talk about the need for a chapter house. We're not asking for money. We're not displaying the renderings for the new chapter house. We're just saying our men need a home, a permanent home on campus at SIU. They digest that. They say, yeah, we actually do. Time for you is going to go very slowly. Time for a general alumnus moves very quickly. So if we deliver that message and it's 12 months from now and we come out with a capital campaign that says, invest in the future home of Beta Alpha at SIU, time that went like that for them. But now we've got 2/3 to 3/4 of the dollars raised, all the influential individuals on board. Now they've understood the need and they see those people. They're like, well, this train's leaving the station. I better get on. I better write my check. And so it's strategic communication to cultivate donors so that they're ready to give when we ask them to, both in the major gift capacity and the general population capacity.
Thanks.
I have a question. Can you hear me?
Go ahead, Jake.
Yes, okay. And listening, I have 2 or 3 parts here to my question. How many people from Pennington will be working on our campaign? First of all, approximately.
Brilliant question, Jake. We always assign a lead consultant to be the point contact for a group. So I talk about Alpha Gamma because I was the lead consultant on Alpha Gamma's campaign, the lead consultant on Alpha Theta's campaign. We have a strategy team behind that consultant that meets weekly to monitor progress and pace to goal. That strategy team is generally 3 to 5 individuals. And then we pull from our consultant base. We have about 20 consultants. And this is where I think our 30 years worth of experience gets extremely valuable. I don't think there would be any situation that we would encounter in Beta Alpha's campaign that we wouldn't have seen in our 30 years worth of experience. So, you know, if our strategy team's talking about progress and we say, here's this challenge, we know, hey, Matt Killingsworth he was the lead consultant at Tennessee Knoxville. He encountered the same thing. Let's get his perspective. So we pull other consultants in on that strategy team when and as needed. But generally, it's the lead consultant, about 3 strategy consultants on their team. And then you've got a database administrator, an admin assistant, writers, designers, content team, and then an alumni communication expert that can guide us on written communication. So there's a pretty good suite of teammates here at the Pennington office.
Okay, thank you. Second part, it's my understanding listening to this that you utilize the brothers in going out and actually probably visiting and trying to solicit. You more or less train us. Is that right?
That's right. You will be more successful if we have a team of volunteers talking about this important project. I think where groups get into trouble in their campaign is they see Pennington as a fundraiser, they hire Pennington and just expect the dollars to show up. We can do that, but it won't be as successful if I have you, Jake, sitting down with Jim to say, here's what I experienced within the walls of SIU. Here's why we need to build a new house for these men on campus today. Would you make a gift? It's harder for Jim to say no to you, Jake, than it is for him to say no to me. So we'll train them. We host the monthly conference call to monitor pace to goal. And so it's a monthly call like this. And then we work with those individual board members between those monthly conference calls. I'd assign you, Jake, a prospect list of 3 to 5. And through the month, we would work via email or phone for you to reach out to those 3 to 5 to set appointments for solicitation of those individuals.
Okay. What about since this is agriculture fraternity, there are a lot of businesses that are strictly agriculture. Do you or have us or whatever reach out to these major companies, say and it's for $250,000, you get to we'll name the chapter room after you, or things of this type.
So I'm going to lead with this. Donor dollars are going to follow a transformational experience. The people with those transformational experiences are going to be your brothers who lived AGR. And so generally in our experience, parents of members, next of kin to people, even some widows of deceased brothers and corporations aren't the greatest prospects. Now, I'll add an asterisk behind that because Alpha Gamma challenged me on this. They said there's a couple corporations in Florida that we have executive leadership, Alpha Gamma Rose, in and of, and we can make an appeal to that. We did so in the public phase, though. They built a corporation solicitation committee, built a list of corporations they wanted to solicit and who was going to solicit those corporations. And so they're really the only group that built a process around it. And then they did see some nice gifts for that, and nice gifts of like 25 and 50,000. They didn't have some significant six-figure level gifts. What I'll tell you the same thing that I told Alpha Gamma. I don't want to cannibalize our time talking with brothers who have the capability in talking with corporations that have the capability, because our experience says you're going to have more success talking with the brothers than the corporation. And so let's not be distracted talking to corporations when we could talk to the brothers. That's why Alpha Gamma built it into their public phase, created a list. We had already solicited most all of their major donor prospects before they went after the corporations.
Okay, thank you. You've answered my question.
Glad to.
Hey,
If we don't
Aaron,
have any
what
other
do you do
questions,
as far as, are you the one, do the funds go to Pennington? Are they the one that do all the tax reporting and all that stuff and provide that to the donors and all that, or what happens with that?
Yeah, so that's tied up in our gift fulfillment. If we're involved in that, Jim, we have our sister company, Omega Financial. They do bills and dues collections for fraternities and sororities nationwide. They process over $1 million a day. So they have a secure PO box in Columbus, Georgia that channels all the mail to. And when that's received, it gets opened securely, imaged, documented, and deposited. And then generally we're fundraising to two buckets: a tax deductible entity, which I imagine would be the Educational Foundation of Alpha Gamma Rho, and then a non-tax deductible bucket, which would likely be a bank account of the House Corporation Board. But once those funds are received, we can remotely deposit those into the respective bank accounts. So Alpha Gamma Rho, the Educational Foundation, would take care of the tax receiving of those gifts. We send an acknowledgement on behalf of the campaign signed by campaign leadership. For the House Corporation Board, there'd be no tax reporting. And so once it's remotely deposited, we just encourage you to keep a separate bank account so those funds aren't commingled. You can monitor the ins and outs. And so you have our report of everything that's been deposited. You have your bank account receipt report. So from the accountancy standpoint, it's a very sound practice.
So for it to be tax deductible, it has to go into the Educational Foundation of AGR?
That's correct. And to pull it out of the Educational Foundation of AGR, it has to have an educational purpose, so an educational space within the chapter house, which is why we raised to two buckets.
So when you're trying to solicit these funds, you're going to say most of the funds that you're asking the brothers for aren't going to be a deductible expense on their taxes.
You'd be surprised, Jim. Only 34% of that $74 million last year was tax deductible. Our largest gift of $1.5 million was a one-time, all cash, all non-tax deductible gift last year. So once we explain the need for non-tax deductibility, more individuals will. It's a balance. We help advise on that as we get into the capital campaign. It's also a question we ask in the feasibility study that we'll report out on, is how important is tax deductibility in your gift?
Right.
Yep.
Does anybody else have any other questions? What I would also encourage you to do, if questions come to you after the call or tomorrow, is for you to email me those questions, and I will consolidate them and send them on to Aaron.
Tom, I think we hit all of your questions except why we should hire Pennington as a fundraiser.
Yes, I think so.
I think I've dribbled a little bit of that throughout, but in closing and offering my thanks, I think Pennington and Company, first and foremost, has a great relationship with Carol Johnson, Rex Martin, and the Home Office. I think Greg could probably speak to that personally in our assistance with the Home Office. They've been a great partner in how we facilitate those funds as well. And so we think highly of the Home Office. We partner well with the Home Office. I think as an acknowledgement to that, we've raised $26.7 million in support of Alpha Gamma Rho. We've raised more than all of our competitors combined, and we have more experience than all of our competitors. And so we really love AGR and working with AGR chapters. And so we'd be honored and privileged to help Beta Alpha as we think about 309 East Mill. So I'll take those questions. Tom, I'll send to you these slides as well.
Okay.
That can be helpful for you. I know this has been recorded as well, but I'm here to be of service to you. The number one thing that I would want you to feel really confident in is the feasibility study to test, can we raise money for the future of 309 East Mill? And so I wouldn't want you to move forward with a lack of confidence. And so any questions are welcome. No question is a dumb question. I know many of you are going through a capital campaign for the first time. We've done over 400 of them. So we just want to bring that knowledge to you to ensure we can be successful. So thanks for being generous with your time. Thanks for having me on the call, and I'll work through Tom, but look forward to talking a little bit more.
Hey, Tom, can we excuse Aaron? It sounds like we're about done, and just take 3 minutes with us here before we adjourn. Okay.
Aaron, I want to thank you for getting on the call. You have been invaluable to helping our group tonight, and I appreciate your time. And we'll have a regular discussion tomorrow afternoon, which is on the calendar.
That sounds great. Well, the pleasure is all mine. Thank you, gentlemen, for your
Thank you,
involvement
sir.
and time.
Appreciate it.
And
Well
dedicating
done.
it to AGR.
Thank
Take
you,
care.
Aaron. Goodbye.
Thanks, Aaron.
I guess I'll express my concern here. We have two outstanding presentations, which I think needs some thinking power. And then we need some collaboration with all of us who have heard this. There are pluses and minuses that I can see all the way through this. And I would like to hear all of your concerns and opinions and ideas, et cetera, et cetera. And I want to say this because I feel it. This is no time for politics. And, Greg is really close to the university. A lot of us are, but my gosh, with what we are connected with that university, and then what we have strived to have as an opportunity here, I think needs some real thinking. And then I think we need to come together and really talk this thing out a little bit more, which I don't think anybody's in a mood to do that tonight. But Tom, I'd like to suggest that next Monday or Tuesday we get back together, or not next, but a week, 2 weeks, come back together. The 20th or 21st, we come back together. That's my spiel.
I think sooner rather than later, but I agree with 100% what you said.
Rick, I know you're on your trade show, and I don't mean trade show, your farm managers meeting next week. Is there a way that you could steal away an hour and a half next Monday or Tuesday while you're at your trade show, your convention? Because I want your input, but I know you're gone next week.
Well, yeah, and it's pretty important because I'm coming up president-elect. It would need to be later. And I guess if it's just us, it doesn't matter if it could be a little bit later. I'm trying to think, Monday, Tuesday. Yeah, I could probably make Monday work. I'll see what I can do. I'll be in Nashville, so I won't be singing.
What, to Tad's point, sooner rather than later. And I think this is very important, but I think a week would really help us, 4 or 5 days of letting this settle in on us and think about it. So can the majority of the people on this call make it next Monday or Tuesday so that we can bring Rick in on it and get as many people as possible?
I can't be on Monday. I could be on Tuesday. I'm going to be flying Monday night.
I probably could be on Tuesday and not Monday either.
Anybody else have any more problems with Tuesday than that? Because I'd be up for making it Tuesday.
I'm not sure. I've checked my calendar. I don't have it with me right now.
Okay, fair enough.
But I personally, I just feel we need a little more time to bundle this around in our mind. I don't see the real urgency, and I don't know. Is this the group that's going to make the ultimate decision, or are we going to involve more of the brothers?
Well, the real urgency, or what's been kind of driving this train that Tom and I got started on, is the timeline with the individuals that own the off-campus property. That's what's all of a sudden become a time crunch. It wasn't a time crunch really until the university got involved. And the question is, in my mind, do we want to be on campus or off campus? I mean, that's the hard question to me. I just we have an opportunity to develop an off-campus, pretty nice facility, appears to be pretty nice location that we haven't had before. All that said, being back on campus at Greek Row is very intriguing. But to my mind, Tom, correct me if I'm wrong, we owe these guys that own this property on Mill Street an answer. And I'm not sure this bird will be in our hands a year from now. And it almost seems like we're pushing for, oh my God, we got to do this right now, or this property is going to be lost. And if I knew the answer to that question, then I could say, well, yeah, there is no time crunch. We got all the time in the world. But as you all know, decent property in Carbondale is hard to find, hard to come by, hard to get your hands on. And this just frustrates the heck out of me, because I feel strongly both ways. And I'm not sure I could mull it over for the next 6 months, and I'm not sure my feeling would change a whole lot. Now, the other side of the coin is, who do you want for the fundraiser? Well, if SIU would do a fundraiser for us off campus, they'd probably be hands down, because they're a whole lot cheaper. On the other hand, Bennington, this is what they do. This is what they do for a living. So I just, there are two major issues at hand here. And I don't know, I mean, somebody help me out. I don't know how to make this, I don't know how to make this leap. The first
You don't
question
think the SI
needs to be answered, do we want to be on campus or off campus?
You don't
Ron,
think that
it's DJ here. Got something to throw at you there. The Mill Street property, the numbers that we looked at. Take AGR out of the equation. Is it a good business decision to go with the Mill Street property? If AGR had nothing to do with it, would Mill Street be a good investment?
I think the answer to that question. The answer to that question is, if you feel confident about putting 24 people in that house consistently and all the time, then yes, it's a good. I think it seems to be a good business decision from the standpoint of the numbers, at least the numbers that we've seen. So if you think that you can always have the dormitory, if you will, the dormitory filled, yeah, it's a good business decision.
And the concept that we've seen, the build out plans are comparable to the suite living type of dormitories, if you will, that the students desire right now. So the way I'm coming at this is a little bit different. I'm looking at it as buying us time with making a good business decision on the Mill Street property. Not closing the door to the university, but going ahead with the Mill Street situation simply because it's good business. It cash flows. It has a positive cash flow, in fact, and keep both doors open. And I know that's a curve that many of you may not have explored, but I just wanted to throw that out there that, take a look at it from that standpoint. Even if it's not an AGR property, it's a good business property. So
I can't disagree with you. I've had I've mulled that same thought over my mind, and what tells me is if we had 5 years, 6 years to make this decision, in other words, yeah, buy that property, go ahead and develop it, and in 4 or 5 years, then go another direction. But that's pretty risky. I mean, we're not in the business of being property owners, and that's kind of risky in my mind.
I don't want to wait 5 years. I want to go down to Southern Illinois to a beta alpha function, and I want to be in the house at a party before I die.
You got 5 years left, Rick?
I got 20 years left.
I agree with you. I wish if the university came today and said, we will have you a house on September the 1st of 2024, I'd be hard pressed to turn that one down. But I don't think that's going to happen.
Hey, Tom, I think the 14th, we ought to make it work because I got a feeling that we're going to bring out a lot of stuff here that we all have in our minds, and we may need another session. This is all good. There's nothing negative here. This is all positive. This is all good, but we got to make some notes and we got to sort this out.
Yes, we do. Rick, on the 14th, which is Tuesday, what time? You're in the Eastern time zone? No, you're in Nashville. You're Central. So what time do you want?
7:30 would work for me, I think.
Can 7:30 work for the majority of you for next Tuesday? I hate to have a meeting so close, but what we have going is critical to get some understanding now.
Hey, Tom, this is Steve. I can't make it next Tuesday, but I got a couple of things here. I think the university still needs to enlighten us with some information over the ownership issue. There's some things in there that we need to have before a decision really can be made. The ownership, because if we don't own it, we don't have to pay taxes on it. What's the upkeep? Who takes care of the upkeep? What's the arrangements that are going to be had over the property? There's a lot of things that they need to answer before I think you can make a objective comparison between the two proposals.
Steve, I agree with you. I asked for specific answers to specific questions going into this meeting tonight. Everybody was on a time crunch. What do we do to get our answers?
I think you got to trust Matt. Greg said it better than I did. He knows him better than I do. I do know him real well. You can trust what he says, but you can tell he's a salesman too.
Yes, indeed.
Shit.
Oh, sure.
But there's a lot of questions got to be answered from them too. That ownership part bothers me. We put in $2 million. They build a building. Who owns the building? It's on university property. Who's going to take care of the maintenance? Do they own the building and then it's our gift to the university, but we have a 99-year lease on it? There's a lot of things that, in my mind, is questions got to be answered.
Yeah, absolutely. If they don't give us a 99-year lease and we own the building, I don't want any part of it. Period. Now, you guys may have a different opinion on that, but that's mine because we're right back to what we had at 116 Creek Row. And I personally won't put a dime into that. And I won't put any time into it either.
And I can testify that Chancellor Lane is very pro-Greek, as in President Mahoney. But those people will be out of those positions in a few years. There's turnover. Chancellor Lane will, 5 years, he may be gone. Then who do we have? So we've got to make sure we've got our butts covered in this process.
We got to make sure what the long-term things are. And we got to have it locked up enough that we're not going to get hung out to dry.
I wanted to come into tonight or with somewhat of a side-by-side ability to compare a Mill Street to a university property. And what I'm struggling with, and I have on the behalf of the group asked for specific questions with specific answers, and I'm not getting them. And I'm going to come back and for the purpose of reiterating, say to the group, how do we get specific answers to our specific questions?
Well, Tom, that was the first question that I asked of Matt, ownership and control. I don't think he's going to be able to tell us ownership and control. I mean, truthfully, I don't think the university can build a house on university property and with regardless of whose money they're using and say, okay, it's your house, you got control of it. I don't think that can happen realistically.
Well, Matt may go back. You heard the meetings that he's got lined up. He may come with a whole different story, giving him a little bit of time. I got a feeling this hit him pretty quick. I don't know what your conversation has been, but I think I felt from his comments that he had this pretty quick. You give him 4 or 5 days here, I think he'll come with some answers for you.
We've really been, what, Tom, 3 weeks talking about this now with him?
We're probably on week 6 or 7.
Okay, time flies.
We're on probably week 6 or 7. And some of the questions have evolved over time, but some of the original questions are still on the table from almost week 2, week 3. And so I think everybody gets that the questions are out there and we need specific answers. I don't care if I got to drive to Carbondale Monday and sit down with legal counsel and get answers. We need answers, and I can't reiterate that enough. And I'm sorry. I love what I heard tonight from everybody, but we need specific answers to specific questions.
Just in my opinion, I felt like when I was down at Carbondale, we met with those two guys with the Mill Street property. That was the biggest chance we've ever had in the last how many years of having our own house. And then it seemed like as soon as it got out that what we're doing this other stuff started coming about. And now we got 2 or 3 different directions to go. I mean, to me, the Mill Street's something that we could probably see something actually happening on. The other is just a promise. And the other thing is, I don't know about the fundraising thing. If the foundation can raise money and not charge us like Pennington, is that something we want to do or not? I don't know. I mean, to me, it seemed like to me that we were heading one direction, and then we got kind of a fork in the road now that we have to decide on. That I just felt like the Mill Street was something we could do. We could actually see something taking place in the near future where we could all see bricks and mortar going, according to the way we wanted it, and be something that we had of our own.
That's because you're exactly right, Jim. That's exactly how I feel.
Just in closing, I think I don't want to cut anybody off, but in really closing, two critical points here. We are going to have a meeting back here Tuesday, November 14th. I'm sorry. Yes, 14th at 7:30. That's point one. Point two, we need to give the big house investment people pretty much our direction of where we're going by Thanksgiving or the 1st of December. And, we either go fishing or cut bait.
Tom, I have a question here, just right quick. I
Yes, sir.
missed out on most of the meetings, but can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Okay. What is the total estimated cost of the Mill Street project? Do we have a number? What does it cost to remodel it and buy it and remodel it?
Ron, correct me if I'm wrong, but I thought it was $2 million.
Yep, that's pretty much right on. And that was another thing that I didn't want to throw a rat in the pile, but tonight he was talking about $1 million. I don't know where he got the $1 million figure, because I know we've talked $2 million. I think to put a fine point on it, I think they were talking 2.2 to be exact, but when you're talking 2 million, 2.2 is kind of in the noise level.
Ron, that's on me, because I've been talking to Aaron for months, and the initial dollar amount that came from Mill Street was like 1.2 or something like that. And so, so I did not revise back with them to the 2 million or 2.2 number to Mill Street. So I'll clear up that I'll clear that up tomorrow.
Well, I don't know if his numbers were just shots in the dark, or if he was using real numbers. But if he was using what he thinks is real numbers based on our membership and so on, we're not even close. But I assume he was just using.
Just to answer Jake's
Tom,
question,
if we could revisit those Mill Street numbers, I have some notes here that the initial cost was $714,000.
That's correct. That was the purchase of the two buildings as they stand.
Yeah, plus development costs, and I'm like at 1.2 also on things. So
it's 1.2 for the first two buildings for phase one. 2 million gets us to phase two.
Yes,
that's what I was going to say to Jake.
That's exactly correct.
Okay, gotcha.
You're exactly right, Taj. Taj, you're exactly right.
Thank you.
That's the numbers that they posted the other night.
And there's an option to purchase at 1.2 for the two buildings. There'd be an option to purchase at 2 million with the two buildings connected as to one big building.
That would be, yes, that would be the completion of it.
Plus the property next door.
Yes.
The old house.
If you remember, he said he would hold that for us. There's not going to be an increase. He's given us that price today, even though it'll take a few years to put it together. So what Tad said was right on.
That's exactly right. You're exactly right. Taj, Rick, both.
Okay. All right. Is there a motion for adjournment?
Good night.
So moved.
Good night.
Good night, all.
All right, look for an invite Tuesday, 7:30 next week. Thank you.
I'll send it
Lots
out.
of things to talk about and to find out between now and then, Mr. President.
I'm sorry.
I'm
What's that?
teasing you. I said lots of stuff to find out and talk about between now and then.
Yes, right on. I agree with
Thanks,
you.
everybody.
I just want to use that Mosaic sponsored urinal, okay?
Where's that?
Well, the corporate sponsorship of the new house, you know,
Oh yeah,
the Mosaic urinal.
I can tell you good luck on that. The foundation might match something. If I can donate something to a foundation, they might match something, but they're not going to donate anything. I can tell you that already.
Goodbye, everybody.
See you guys.
Good night.
That guy.